Hello, Walker here. This is a guide from Maisara Caverns in Mythic Plus difficulty. We will cover the key abilities of trash mobs, boss mechanics, and how to deal with them. Soul Eaters cast Necrotic Wave and Rain of Toads. Necrotic Wave is a healing absorb that is cast on a random player. Rain of Toads is a channeled AoE ability that players need to avoid. Headhunters will jump away and cast Hook Snare on a random player, have a Death Knight grip them back into the group, or interrupt them. Bramble Bears have a stacking debuff called Crunch Armor that increases damage taken by 20%. Hex Guardian casts Magma Surge and Ritual Firebrand. Magma Surge targets a random player. To survive this, use a defensive. Firebrand is a ground area ability that players need to avoid. Ritual Hexer casts Hex and Shadow Bolt. Hex is a targeted spell that will CC a player. This needs to be interrupted. Shadow Bolt is a targeted spell that can be interrupted. Hulking Juggernaut casts Rending Gore and Deafening Roar. Rending Gore is a damage ability that is only cast on the tank. Deafening Roar is an AoE ability that damages and silences players. Umbral Shadowbiter casts Shrink. Shrink is a targeted channeled spell that will inflict damage. This can be interrupted. Murgeon and Necrax. Murgeon will cast Flanking Spear on the tank. This will apply a bleeding debuff. Necrax will cast Infected Pinions to the group, leaving a damage over time debuff. Murgeon will leave freezing traps that players will need to avoid. Necrax will cast Fetid Quillstorm. Players will need to avoid this. Murgeon will target a player and cast a channeled frontal called Barrage. The targeted player will need to use defensive and stand still. Once Necrax starts casting Carrion Swoop, the targeted player will need to step in a freezing trap. This will stun Necrax and free the player. Murgeon and Necrax need to die as close together as possible. If Murgeon dies first, Necrax becomes enraged. If Necrax dies first, Murgeon will revive Pet to full health. Restless Nolan casts Ancestral Crush. Players will need to avoid this. Tormented Shade casts Spirit Rend, which is a targeted spell that leaves a stacking debuff on the targeted player. This can be interrupted and the debuff can be dispelled. Roxel casts Invoke Shadow and Ritual Sacrifice. Invoke Shadow is a well on the floor that will drag players towards it. Ritual Sacrifice is a targeted spell which will immobilize a player. You can use abilities that will remove this type of effect, or DPS will need to target Death's Grasp to free the targeted player. Hollow Soul Render will cast Frost Nova and Shadow Bolt. Frost Nova is a targeted spell. The targeted player will need to move it outside of the group and wait for it to expire. Shadow Bolt can be interrupted. Bound Defender casts Soul Storms and Vigilant Defense. Soul Storms is 2 rotating tornadoes. Players will need to avoid this. Vigilant Defense reduces damage taken from the front. Simply stand behind the mob and continue the fight. Wodaza channels Drain Soul on the tank. Use a defensive to mitigate this. Wodaza will cast Rest Phantoms. This will target everyone in the group except for the healer. Players will need to pair up and move the phantoms into each other. You will want to delay popping all 4 at the same time as it leaves a stacking debuff. Wodaza will cast Unmake, which is a frontal cone. Players will need to avoid this. Wodaza will phase after 2 sets of Rest Phantoms and start to cast Necrotic Convergence. DPS will need to break Wodaza's Death Shroud shield and then interrupt the cast. Players will also need to avoid the Coalesce Death. Raktul casts Spirit Break on the tank, which knocks the tank back and leaves a patch on the floor. Use a defensive to mitigate this. Raktul will target 3 players with Crush Souls. Raktul will then leap to the targeted player's location in order. Once Raktul has leaped on a player, a Soulbind totem will spawn. Targeted players will need to stand as close together as possible to make it easier to destroy the Soulbind totems. After 2 cycles of totems, Raktul will cast Soul Rending Roar. This will drag all players towards Raktul and send them into the Spirit Realm. You will need to interrupt the Malignant Soul, as this will give players a stacking buff that gives movement speed, damage and healing. If you liked this video and you want to see more, hit the post notification button, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.